Alright, let's see who actually watches this tonight. About, I'm guessing, 9. 9. Yeah, something like that. Prove me wrong, people. Watch my notes. Alright, 7-6. Modifying the basic rhythm. Extrinsic. Innercation. Innervation. I don't even know what I meant to say there. I'll tell you tomorrow. Alright. Okay, so we talked about intrinsic properties, which is the heart's ability to make itself pump all by itself, or beat. So now we're going to talk about the extrinsic, which is from outside of the heart. So you have two different types of nervous systems. You have the one that you're in charge of, the one that you can tell your muscles to move and all that kind of stuff, but then you have the kind that happens all by itself, like maintaining your blood pressure, telling your heart to beat, blinking, all the stuff that you don't really think about is referred to as the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is responsible for modifying the rate of the heartbeat. So your heart will beat all by itself even without being connected to your brain. But if you needed to increase your heart rate or decrease your heart rate for any reason, then it's up to the autonomic nervous system to kind of take over and tell your SA to speed it up or slow it down. So of the autonomic nervous system, you have two divisions, the sympathetic nervous division and the parasympathetic. The sympathetic division of the nervous system's job is to increase the rate and the force of the beat. So on average, we're 72 beats per minute. And so the sympathetic nervous system, when stimulated, will cause your heartbeat to increase in pace, but also in how hard it contracts as well. This portion of your brain is referred to as the cardio-acceleratory center. So acceleration means to speed up, so the word kind of makes sense. Now the sympathetic nervous system, or the center here, feeds the SA and the AV nodes. The nerves coming from your brain down your spinal cord feed directly into those nodes. Then we have the other division called the parasympathetic nervous system, and I can't spell. Dear Lord, that's an M. Sympathetic. What this one does is just the opposite. It decreases the rate of the beat, so it's referred to as the cardio-inhibitory center. Inhibit means to, slow down. And this one also feeds the SA and AV nodes. So your brain has the ability to kind of override the sinus rhythm, cause it to speed up or slow down, depending on what the needs of the body are. Both of these areas, the cardio-acceleratory and the cardio-inhibitory centers, are located in the medulla oblongata, which is at the base of your brain, and it's really fun to say. Okay, so how do we know how our heart is beating, if it's beating well or not? Well, we take a graph or a picture kind of your heart's beat based on the electrical activity that's going on inside. So what we looked at with the SA node going to the AV node, to the bundle, down the branches, and so on, that can be picked up by electrical leads. And the way to look at that is with something called an electrocardiograph, ECG. So right there, ECG. It's also called EKG. K stands for cardio, but in the German it's written with a K instead of a C, so that's where the K comes from. So an electrocardiograph is just the recording of the heart activity or the electrical currents that are passing through the heart. So here's our little guy right here sitting there in his skivvies, and so he's got all these little sticky notes all over him, and they're all connected to wires. He even has some on his legs, and you don't see them, but there's even two down on his ankles as well. And so he's got all these what are called leads, or these little stickies that are attached to sensors, and these sensors are picking up changes in polarity of the cells. And so then that goes through here and goes into a machine and then pops out as this recording, which is what we call an EKG or an ECG. So what's going on here is this shows all the action potentials, the waves, by the nodal and contractile cells. So the nodal cells are the non-contracting cells found in the SA node, the AV node, and so on. And then the contractile cells, which is the rest of the heart. There's usually 12 leads that are placed on the body to show the electrical activity of the heart, although it can be done with 5 or 6 as well. Okay, so let's take a look at what we normally see in an EKG. We get little things called deflection waves. Deflection waves, so we've got our normal wave right here. Okay, that's standard. And so a deflection wave is anything deflected off of that original line. So the first one we have is called a P wave, and that's right here. And the P wave basically starts the heartbeat. And so what's going on at the P wave is we have the depolarization wave moving from the SA node through the atria. So, and it lasts about 0.08 seconds. It's really, really small. And about 0.1 seconds after that, the atria contract. So what's going on here, so the P wave, this little thingy right there, is that the wave is passing from the SA node to the AV node, basically, and then right afterwards, we're going to get contraction of the atria. And so I'm going to show you lots of different versions of this so you can get an idea of what they look like no matter who you look at. So there's a P wave, bloop, just a little bump showing that electricity is passing through the atria. Okay, the next thing we have is a QRS complex. So if this is P, Q is at this point right here, R is right here, and S is down there. So together they make up the QRS complex. This is caused by ventricular polarization that occurs right before the ventricular contraction. So what's happening is there's a surge of electricity going through the heart up to here, then it peaks, and then an immediate drop and return back to normal. Then the ventricles will contract right after that. Very short, 0.08 seconds long. Then after that we have the T wave. The T wave, so this is the depolarization of the ventricles here, so the ventricles are actually contracting from here to here. So that's followed by the T wave, which is the repolarization of the ventricle, basically getting set back to normal. Lasts about 0.16 seconds. And at the same time, we have atrial repolarization. So the atria are contracting right here, but they don't repolarize until way the heck over here. But we don't see it because it's kind of hidden by the T wave. Okay, then we've got some segments or chunks of this which doctors look at to determine the health of your heart. One is called the PQ interval, and so it's just what you have between P and Q. So this little section, this little flat part right here, this is the beginning of atrial excitation to the beginning of the ventricular excitation. So it's kind of like the what's going on in between the two contractions. So it includes atrial depolarization and contraction. So here's leading up to the atrial contraction. So this is the depolarization, and then we have the atria actually contracts right here. Okay, the next one is called the ST segment. The ST segment, as you can imagine, is found between the S and the T. So it's kind of like this chunk right here, the ST segment. And this is when the action potential is at its plateau. So if this is our flat line right here, that's this chunk right here. It's gone back to normal. So that's the ST segment. And the timing that it takes from here to here is very set and standard in our heart. So if it takes a long time to do that, well, then that tells the doctor something's wrong. Then we have the QT interval, which is the beginning of the ventricular polarization right here, all the way to the ventricular repolarization, which ends right there. And so that whole chunk right there is called the ventricular repolarization, or the QT interval. There's something called long QT syndrome, which is where the time from Q to T takes much longer than it should, and that's symptomatic of certain heart diseases. Okay, so when we look at a whole bunch of these in a row, we can find the beginning and end of your heartbeat. So the P is technically the beginning. So if we find right before the bump of the P, like that, and then it goes P, dip to Q, up to R, dip to S, and then another bump for T, and then this right here is the resting period. And then when we find the next P right there, that is our cardiac cycle. That is one full, complete heartbeat. So the beginning of one P to the beginning of the next P wave. Okay. Then we've got some abnormal EKGs, so you can get a general idea as to what it looks like. We have tachycardia. Tachy means fast, and then cardia means heartbeat. So if you notice, the spikes, the QRS, the pointy part, is very close together. Look, there's like no rest period between the T and the P. Usually we want a nice little line like right here. We want a little line to flatten out, but there's no line. So your heart is just going like crazy, doesn't have time to rest. Then we have ventricular fibrillation. That's the quivering. And as you can see, there's nothing regular about this. So it's everybody's firing at once, and it just basically becomes static. Then we have a heart block, which is a failure of stimulation to ventricles following atrial contraction. Remember how I said that the atria aren't connected to the ventricles, but they need the bundle in order to communicate? So if there's a problem, if you notice there's no T, P, B, P, Q, R, S, well, maybe that one could be a T there, P, P, and so they're not talking right with each other. Here's some more normal sinus rhythm. So this is a happy heart. Ventricular tachycardia, and so as you can see, they're too fast, too close together. Single early ventricular complex in the background of sinus rhythm. So basically, that's not normal right there. And then atrial fibrillation, which is just gibberish, which is your heart quivering like jello. Okay, your heart sound. When we listen to your heart, the doctors usually listen for lub-dub. I always call it dub, but it's actually dup. So the heart sounds, there's two distinct sounds produced by the heart, the lub and the dup. And these are associated with the closing of valves. The lub deals with the AV valve, so the mitral or the bicuspid and the tricuspid valves. And this begins systole. Systole, if you look down here, is a period when ventricles and atria are contracting. So the lub is when your heart is starting to squeeze. So when the ventricular pressure rises above the atrial pressure, it causes the vessels, or the flaps to close, and then that causes the lub sound. The dup sound occurs when the semilunar valves close at the beginning of ventricular diastole. Diastole, if we look down here, is a period when the ventricles and atria are nice and relaxed and chilling and relaxing and acting all cool and shooting some b-ball outside of school. When a couple of guys that were up to no good started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight, my mom got scared, said, "You're moving with your auntie and your uncle in Bel Air." Okay, I should stop that. You're singing along, aren't you? Well, the three of you that are actually watching. Okay, so lub-dup, lub, AV valves, dup, semilunar valves, systole, contraction, diastole, relaxation. So here's kind of a picture showing how it works. So here's a cyclic view of your heart. So diastole, as we can see, the heart is, I'm sorry, let me go back for a second. Systole. So systole, this is the contraction phase right here. And so all the little arrows are showing who's contracting and where the blood's going. Diastole is resting right here, and that's when they open up and allow blood to come right in again. So here again, this one goes to this one. Whee. Diastole is your heart's relaxing, which allows the blood to kind of get sucked in. And then we have systole, which is the squeezing of your heart muscle, which is pushing the blood out. And then when it relaxes, it allows more blood to get sucked back in again. Alright, last little thing, problems with the heart sounds, heart murmurs. When doctors listen to you, they can tell if there's something wrong with you by if you have any heart murmurs. So a heart murmur is any abnormal heart sound, and there's a plethora of them. But basically, the main cause of it is the backflow of blood in your heart. Normally, when your blood goes through, the valves close, and that's it. But every once in a while, if they don't close correctly, a little bit of blood comes back and makes a sloshy sound, and those are the heart murmurs. So we'll see if we can find some audio on that, listen to different types of heartbeats. Okay, that's it for today. I will see you guys tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have more than 10 viewers today. Alright, bye-bye, guys.